Today we start chapter number 2, atomic structure. Our first topic of this chapter is cathode ray tube experiment or discharge tube experiment. This cathode ray tube experiment discovered the electron. So this discovery of electron is derived from the cathode ray tube experiment, and this cathode ray tube experiment consists of a glass tube which is connected to a vacuum pump. This glass tube is connected to two electrodes. One is cathode and the other one is anode. These cathode and anode are connected to a very high voltage source and this glass tube consists of gas, vapor, or anything which is to be studied under any desired pressure. So that electrical conduction takes place at any desired pressure through this gas. Now, William Crookes first time observed that electrical conduction takes place at reduced pressure. Electrical conduction cannot take place under ordinary pressure, even when these electrodes are connected to a very high voltage source such as 5000 volt. However, when the pressure is reduced to 0.1 mm of mercury, then these cathode and anode are connected to a voltage source of about 5000 volt. Then electrical conduction through this gas takes place and uniform electric discharge takes place. Here electric discharge takes place and uniform glow appears inside the tube. When pressure is again reduced to 0.01 mm of mercury, then this uniform glow disappears and rays are produced which move from cathode towards the anode and produce fluorescence on the fluorescent screen which is placed opposite wall of the cathode. In this way, cathode rays are produced. These rays are known as cathode rays by the Goldstein. Because these rays were originated from cathode, so that's why these are known as cathode rays. Now we revise our lecture. Electrons are discovered are derived from the cathode ray tube experiment. This cathode ray tube consists of a glass tube having cathode and anode which are fused at the opposite walls of the glass tube, and this glass tube is connected to a vacuum pump. This cathode and anode are connected to a high voltage source. William Crookes first time observed that electrical conduction takes place at reduced pressure. However, at ordinary pressure, this electrical conduction cannot take place even when it is connected to this to a very high voltage source such as 5000 to 10,000 volt. So he observed that when pressure is reduced to 0.1 mm of mercury and high voltage source such as 5000 volt is applied at the cathode and anode, then electric discharge takes place and uniform glow will be appears. And if pressure is reduced to 0.01 mm of mercury and voltage source is provided which is about to 5000 to 10,000 volt, then uniform glow disappears and rays produced which moves from cathode towards the anode, and these rays produce fluorescent at the opposite wall of the cathode, and these rays are known as cathode rays by the Goldstein because these rays are originated from the cathode, so that's why they are known as cathode rays.